Kenneth K. woke up in the back seat of an ambulance speeding west on I-10 toward Lafayette General Hospital. He began shaking from a severe coughing fit, and the paramedic gently helped him turn on his side to clear his airway of mucus and vomit. "What the hell happened?" Kenneth coughed. "The factory caught fire," the paramedic replied. "What?" Kenneth asked in horror. "Are you okay?" The paramedic did not answer him, but simply continued to monitor Kenneth's vital signs, then put the mask back over his mouth and nose so that Kenneth's lungs could fill with oxygen. The emergency room at Lafayette Hospital was filled with victims of the fire at the Bender factory, who were being sorted and examined according to the severity of their condition. No, check her first," Kenneth demanded when the paramedic began to wheel him into the ward in front of Patsy Bordelon. "You have a head injury, and she has burns," the paramedic corrected him. "What? I don't have," Kenneth said, and lost consciousness again. When he came to, bright sunlight was streaming through the window. The ward was half closed and Big Mike was lying on the other bed. He was jokingly called Big Mike because he was just over 5 feet tall. Big Mike was very stocky, his chest and arms covered with bulging muscles. "We're damn lucky to be alive," Big Mike groaned, noticing that Kenneth had regained consciousness. "Yeah," groaned Kenneth, not feeling very lucky. "I heard some of us died," continued Big Mike, and Kenneth heard him sobbing quietly. "Oh God," groaned Kenneth, sighing wistfully at the thought of his dead friends and colleagues. "Man, what the hell happened?" Big Mike asked. "I don't know. I bought some cocaine from a vending machine and woke up in an ambulance," Kenneth admitted. 4 days later, Lafayette General discharged Kenneth K. Big Mike broke his back and will remain in the hospital for several more days. Jennifer K., Kenneth's wife, drove 40 miles from Bender to Lafayette to pick up her husband. The tall blonde made it clear that she was not thrilled about having to make such a long trip. Kenneth sat next to her, wondering for the umpteenth time why he had ever married this flighty woman. Yes, she was beautiful, or had been beautiful 19 years ago, standing behind the counter at McDonald's, but beauty alone was not enough to justify her attitude and behavior. Their marriage was a typical guess what, honey affair, and Kenneth had agreed to do the right thing. Marry the frightened, angry Jennifer Moore and give the child growing in her womb a loving home. He put his dream of becoming a professional baseball player on hold, along with his dream of becoming a bass player in a rock band, and took a job at a mattress factory in Bender. When he found out that the midnight to 8 shift paid 20 cents more, he jumped at the chance. No. The more we save, dear, the sooner we can get out of this awful flat and buy our own house for you, me, and Kenny, Kenneth said, stroking his wife's rounded belly. Jennifer gave birth to a beautiful blonde girl and named her Jadia Ann Kay. Jada? Kenneth frowned at the strange name. Yes, I went to school with a girl whose mother named her Veresa, you know? Instead of Teresa. And I remember thinking how cool it was that her mother loved her so much that she gave her her own name, you know? There are hundreds of Jennifers in the world, but how many Veresas do you know? Jennifer explained. Greedy? Kenneth interrupted. Where did that come from? Yes, it's like Nadia, only with a G, you know? Jennifer replied. Kenneth sighed, realizing that arguing with Jennifer was pointless. She had already made up her mind. As soon as Jadia started walking, Jennifer announced that they were expecting another child. Fine, but I'm going to name this child, insisted Kenneth. Yeah, right, Jennifer replied, not about to let him name their child. Jalissa Amy Kay was born, a curly-haired blonde with blue eyes like her mother. Jalissa? Kenneth asked, frowning. My mom's name is Melissa, so it's like Melissa, only with a J, Jennifer explained, and began cooing and rocking the wrinkled baby. Sounds like a beggar's name, Bernice Kay, Kenneth's mother, whispered loudly. Despite Jennifer's tendency to spend money recklessly, Kenneth had saved up a decent amount to fulfill his dream of owning his own family home. Fine, you can buy it, but I'm not living here, Jennifer grumbled when Kenneth showed her the house they could afford. It's a start, he tried to explain patiently. I've saved enough money so we can buy it outright, renovate it, sell it, and use the proceeds to buy a bigger house. But Jennifer decided that she needed a bigger house now, not later, and forced Kenneth to shell out a hefty sum for a much more spacious home. With a 14% interest rate, the mortgage easily ate up more than half of his salary. When all three women and Kenneth had settled into their new home, Jennifer announced that they were expecting another child. Damn it, honey, Kenneth whined. I can barely feed us. Now we're going to have another kid? 6-year-old Jadea and 5-year-old Jalissa decided they hated JC Alice K and tormented the little brunette at every opportunity. Kenneth didn't even ask the baby's name or inquire about her origins. Both he and Jennifer were blonde with blue eyes. In the last 100 years, there had only been one brunette in Kenneth's family, and no one was sure of Oliver K's origins. But even Oliver had blue eyes, not dark brown like JCK's. Very little was known about Jennifer's family. Most of her relatives had long since lost touch with each other. So it was quite possible that chestnut hair and hazel eyes were a recessive gene somewhere in Jennifer's family. But JC had been her father's little girl since birth. Jennifer was content to take care of her 2 daughters, leaving JC to her father. And JC's protection, too. "Mummy, he hit me!" Jalissa screamed at the top of her lungs after Kenneth spanked her. "I caught her just as she was about to throw this at JC's head," Kenneth explained, holding up a large ceramic piggy bank. "I wasn't going to," Jalissa lied. "I was just showing her." "While she was asleep." Kenneth grinned, and Jalissa blushed nobly, caught in such an obvious lie. Kenneth didn't notice that Jalissa had referred to him as he instead of dad. He also didn't notice that JD did the same, referring to him as he or his, but never dad or any other word denoting kinship. Jennifer, on the other hand, noticed this and grinned every time her 2 angels did the same. 19 years later, speeding down the I-10 in his beat-up Ford F-150 pickup truck, Kenneth wasn't allowed to drive her BMW, even though he had bought it himself. He wondered again why he had ever married her. "So," she blurted out, speaking for the first time since he had gotten into the passenger seat of the pickup truck, "I suppose now that you're out of work, you'll be loafing around all day, right?" "I'm not unemployed," he objected. "Come on, Kenneth, the damn factory closed," Jennifer shouted. "Are you just going to stand around in the ashes?" "No, Big Eddie came to the hospital and said we'd get paid, even if we didn't work until the new factory opened," Kenneth replied. "So you think you're just going to sit here and ruin all my fun?" Jennifer snorted. "Ruined what fun?" Kenneth asked as she pulled up to their garage. "If you think I'm going to give up our dates just because you're home, you're in for another hell," she hissed as she entered the house. "Wait, what?" Kenneth asked, sure he hadn't heard her. "You heard me, you idiot," she hissed, then forced a smile. "Probably not, huh?" she asked, smiling even wider. "Well, now that it's out in the open, I don't have to pretend anymore." "Wait, what are you talking about?" Kenneth asked. "Come on, Kenneth, grow up, Peanut," Jennifer giggled. "It's not like we didn't figure this out years ago. You're at work. I'm on the road." Kenneth's head spun and his vision blurred as he listened to his wife recount her numerous affairs. Behind her, 2 angels laughed at him. JC, on the other hand, looked completely devastated as she listened to her mother berate her father. "Well, pack your things and take your 2 precious bitches with you," Kenneth finally hissed. "Oh, no, dear," Jennifer laughed loudly. No, that won't work. Divorce isn't allowed in our state, which means I get half of everything, plus custody of the children. And that means you'll be paying the mortgage, the car, and alimony. Oh, and you can kiss your precious little angel goodbye. I'll never let you see her. Come on, you fool. Divorce me. I dare you." "Well, if we're done here, I have a date with Cecil. See you later." Kenneth watched in shock as she climbed the stairs, already pulling her mobile phone out of her handbag. "Hi, Cecil. Yes, the fool is home. Can you pick me up in 30 minutes?" said Jennifer, slamming the bedroom door. "Dad, I swear I didn't know anything," JC whispered, sobbing and hugging her father tightly. "Honey, everything will be fine," Kenneth whispered, hugging the 12-year-old girl tightly. "Peanuts," giggled Jalissa, coming out of the kitchen with her huge body. "Everything will be fine," Kenneth assured her. Chapter 2. Kenneth smiled tensely when a car stopped in front of the house, loud ghetto music blaring from it. "See you later," Jennifer exclaimed cheerfully, and grinned when Kenneth gave her the middle finger. "I'd call Cecil to come and beat you up," she hissed viciously. "I wouldn't advise that if I were you," he agreed easily. "Go to hell, you bastard," she growled, unable to think of anything else to say. "It won't happen again, but hurry up. Don't keep me waiting," said Kenneth and turned back to his computer screen. The door slammed shut, and Kenneth shook his head sadly. 2 more clicks and all of Jennifer's credit cards were canceled and the balances on her accounts were paid off in full. Then, he increased the amount of her mortgage and car insurance and lowered the deductibles on both. The increased insurance premiums were paid from a secret bank account that Jennifer had opened. Kenneth knew about her account, He had known about it for many years, but since she only transferred 300 or 400 pounds a month to it, he saw no reason to worry. Opening a new bank account in his name and his mother's took a little longer. He wanted his children to be taken care of, even if, according to Jennifer, he wasn't the father of any of them. He smiled as he transferred $42,580 from Jennifer's secret account to his new account. Finally, he sighed, leaned back in his chair and picked up the phone. "Hi, Mum," he said. 5 minutes later, Kenneth was stomping up the stairs. Jalissa's door was the first on the left, and he knocked loudly. "What?" Jalissa shouted defiantly. "Open the door," Kenneth ordered. "Go away," she snapped back. "Fine," Kenneth said, and tried to turn the handle. "Get lost, you idiot," Jalissa giggled as he rattled the locked door. "Yeah, right," said Kenneth and took a step back. Jalissa screamed in terror as the door flew apart. "I said open the door, and I meant open the door," Kenneth growled. "Now get your fat ass in the car, now!" "Screw you! You can't tell me what to do," the 17-year-old girl shouted, still scared. Kenneth pulled her out of bed by her greasy hair, hit her twice in the face, and said calmly, "I'm not kidding. Get your fat lazy ass in the car now." Jadia didn't even wait for her father to knock on the door. She was a coward who hid behind her mother or Jalissa. She rushed down the stairs and climbed into the backseat of her mother's BMW. JC looked fearfully at her approaching father. "Get in the car," Kenneth said quietly. "Yes, sir," JC replied. "Please take care of Pebbles," JC whispered. "Damn, I forgot." "Okay, I'll take care of her," Kenneth promised. Pebbles was JC's cat. She had lived with her since she was 9. JC named her after the cartoon, The Flintstones. Because of their love for the cat, JD and Jalissa constantly tried to hurt her. Therefore, the animal trusted no one but JC. "Wait, what does that mean?" Jade asked suspiciously. "I know what it means." Jade smiled at her father, trying not to show that she was upset. "Thanks, Mum," Kenneth exclaimed as the girls approached the house. Kenneth went into Huol Texaco, bought 2 5-gallon cans and filled them with petrol. "Maybe you should put some newspapers in there," the salesman advised as Kenneth loaded the cans into the boot of his expensive car. "To hell with it," Kenneth smiled. Kenneth returned to the house, picked up the box in which they had taken the cat to Dr. Dupree for its annual vaccination, and entered the house. As usual, Pebbles was nowhere to be seen and did not respond to Kenneth's calls. Finally, he took out a can of cat food and closed the lid. He poured the smelly substance onto one of Grandma Jennifer's porcelain plates and waited patiently. Finally, the smell won out, and Pebbles emerged from behind the sofa to investigate. "Gotcha, you rotten creature!" Kenneth smiled and put the cat and plate away in a desk drawer. Jalissa hummed irritably as her mother's mobile phone switched to voicemail again. "Mum, call me back. I'm at Grandma's. Dad's gone crazy, it's true. Call me," she whispered. "No need to whisper, I know you're calling your mum," Bernice replied sharply, startling Jalissa. "Why do I have to be here?" Jalissa snapped at the woman. "I'm 17. I'm old enough to take care of myself." "Yes, I'm 18, replied Jadia, standing behind Jalissa. "Bye," Bernice waved her hand. "You don't want to be here? Then I definitely don't want you here." The two girls grinned as they headed for the front door. "How are you going to get home?" Bernice asked. "It's 9 miles, and I know neither of you has ever walked that far in your life." "No, but you can give us a lift," Jalissa ordered. "We can, but I won't," Bernice replied, and began to take out the bowls for the stew she was cooking. "Then how are we going to?" Jalissa exclaimed. "I don't know what to do, but I don't care," Bernice said, and placed 3 bowls on the table. "JC, Melvin, dinner's ready." "Excuse me," Melvin ordered, pushing Jalissa aside. "Where's my place?" Jalissa asked when JC took her seat at the table. "I think your place is where you're standing, remember? You're old enough to take care of yourselves." "Bye," Bernice said, waving her hand. "I hate you," Jalissa shouted at her grandmother. "How sweet, dear," Bernice smiled. "Bye." Kenneth made several holes in the petrol tank of his BMW and, after thinking for a long time, several in the tank of his pickup truck. Then he carried the first of 5 5-gallon cans upstairs and proceeded to the bedroom he shared with Jennifer. He poured gasoline liberally over the bed, the dresser, and the low wardrobe. Sighing, he looked at the 42-inch plasma TV, then shrugged, picked up one of her ridiculous figurines, and threw it at the expensive television. When he entered JC's room and began pouring petrol on her bed, his stomach clenched. He noticed a small framed photograph and picked it up. It was of him and JC posing with a small fish she had caught when he first took her fishing. He took the photo down and put it on the box. Inside the box, Pebbles, having received a treat, had already started squeaking. He went back upstairs and took pleasure in dousing JC and Jalissa's rooms with the rest of the first can of petrol. Then he simply poured the can over Jalissa's bed. He emptied the second canister on the furniture downstairs. Then he took the box and the small photograph and left the house. He placed the box and the photograph on the edge of the driveway, then walked towards the house. He turned on the sprinkler and aimed the jet at Ray's house. On the other side, he did the same, aiming the jet at Debbie's house. Then he smiled as he looked at the expensive house that Jennifer had insisted on buying for a home he didn't want, didn't love, but had called home for the last 14 years. He opened the front door, lit a match in the fireplace, and threw it onto the petrol-soaked oriental rug. Then he closed the door, walked to the edge of the driveway, and waited. When the first fire engine arrived, it was too late. All that remained of the house was a swirling ball of flame. Ray's house had already begun to smolder, although Kenneth had taken care to install sprinklers, so the first fire engine tried to prevent the flames from spreading to Ray's house. Debbie's house was a little further away, so a second fire engine helped the first one fight the fire in Ray's house. "What happened?" asked Sheriff Dick Davis as Kenneth stood across the street holding a rickety box and a small framed photograph. "Arson," Kenneth shrugged. "My wife Jennifer and I decided that if we burned it down, we'd get the insurance money and buy a smaller house we could afford." "Did you start the fire?" "On purpose," asked Sheriff Dick Davis, making sure his deputy Orville Jackson was close enough to hear Kenneth's confession. "Yes," Kenneth shrugged. "Kenneth, I took the kids to their mothers for dinner, then went to Huall, bought a couple of cans of petrol and poured it all over the house. Yes, and the car too. Those damn payments were killing us, you understand? But damn it, I forgot about the truck. You see, it's paid off, so when do you think we'll get the insurance money?" "Sir, where's your wife?" Dick asked. "I don't know. She said she didn't want to see him, you know? And her friend came and took her away," Kenneth said, setting the box on the ground. Pebbles' arm was getting tired. "Sir, put your hands behind your back, please," said Dick. "Damn it, smarty pants," complained Jadiah, as she and Jalissa walked down Highway 19 toward their house. "We could have just waited until we ate, and he would have picked us up." "He wouldn't have come back for us," smiled Jalissa. "We would have been stuck here until Mum came to pick us up." "How much further is it?" asked Jadiah. "Look around you, Jadiah," said Jalissa, pointing to the surroundings. "Is this anywhere near our house?" "I'm going back," Jadiah decided. Jalissa also wanted to return to her grandmother's house, but her pride prevented her from doing so. "He seems happy to be here," Orville remarked, looking at Kenneth K. "Yes, and have you figured out what to do with this cat?" Dick asked. "Yes, and here she is." Orville smiled as his sister entered the station. "Hello, Barney Fife," smiled Wilhelmina Jackson, handing her brother 2 small pills. "I thought a big policeman like you would know where to get phenobarbital." "I know, call my little sister," Orville smiled. "Thanks, sis." "Yes, and where's that cutie Eric Green?" Willie asked, looking around. "He's off today," Dick smiled. "But I'll be sure to tell him you were looking for him." "You better. My dog is having seizures because I gave you the medicine. You could at least ask that lovely jerk to give me a ride," Willie smiled. She turned to leave the station. "And I'm not talking about some McDonald's. It better be Manny's or a touch of Sicily, you hear me?" she shouted as she left the small building. "Should we tell her that Eric is gay?" Dick asked Orville. "Really?" Orville asked, his eyes wide. "No, but he's scared to death of that girl," Dick smiled. "Well, Barney Fife, how are you going to get that thing down the cat's throat?" "Watch and learn," Orville replied smugly. He took 2 pills and crushed them with the handle of his service revolver. Then he took 3 small containers of coffee mix and emptied their contents onto a small plate. The crushed pills were poured onto the plate. Dick grinned as he watched Orville carry the contents of the plate to the small cabinet where they had hidden the box. Dick grinned when Orville returned, pressing his bloody hand to his chest. "Any better ideas?" Orville replied sharply. "Yeah, the Lafayette Animal Control is on its way," Dick said. "That's why he's the sheriff and you're not," Officer Mike Stevens said, applying antiseptic to Orville's bleeding hand. "Go get your granddaughter," Bernice ordered Melvin as Jadiah sat at the table eating reheated stew. "The Braves will win by 1 goal and that'll be 8, Melvin argued. Go. I guarantee nothing will happen in the 10 minutes you're gone, Bernice said. I'll keep an eye on you and let you know what happens, JC offered. You know what, woman? Go after her, said Melvin, already putting on his shoes. Melvin, you know I hate driving at night, smiled Bernice, watching her husband obediently prepare to do as she asked. Yeah, on three, 1, 2, 3, Melvin said. Go, Braves! JC and Melvin shouted cheerfully as Melvin opened the door. You're all so silly, Bernice smiled. Melvin noticed Jalissa sitting on the side of Highway 19, hunched over. He smiled tensely. She hadn't gone 2 miles before giving up. He spun around, pulled up, and stopped in front of her. He rolled down the passenger window. Get in, he ordered. Jalissa didn't say a word, just got up and got in the car. Melvin watched with a slight perverse satisfaction as Jalissa wiped her tears, trying not to let him see. Grandma's warming up some stew for you, Melvin said quietly when they stopped in front of the house. Thank you, Jalissa whispered. Cecil was not thrilled that Jennifer's MasterCard and Visa had been declined. Grumbling, he pulled out 3 crumpled 20-pound notes and threw them onto the small plate the waiter held out. The bill is $59.19, the waiter said quietly. Yes, Cecil growled. That's 3 20s, right? Yes, sir, that's correct, sir, the waiter replied tensely and walked away. They're waiting for a tip, Jennifer hissed. They can wait for anything, but that doesn't mean I have to give them anything, does it? Cecil growled. Well, I wanted to offer to drive him to the Hilton and Towers, but for some reason my cards, Jennifer said, and smiled to herself as the waiter threw Cecil's change on the table in front of him. Thank you, Cecil smiled. You're welcome, sir. The waiter smiled as Cecil defiantly counted the change and left him a penny. So what do you want to say? Cecil asked as they waited for the valet to bring the car around. I think I want to say that I know what I promised you, but Jennifer replied. The back seat will be fine, Cecil said and opened the door for her. Tell animal control that this is my daughter's cat. Her name is JC, and here's the phone number where you can reach her, Kenneth said as Orville walked around the cages with his bandaged arm. What? Orville asked incredulously. The cat belongs to me, Kenneth repeated. You knew that an hour ago and didn't say anything? Orville asked, raising his voice. An hour ago it wasn't a problem, Kenneth shrugged. I'll call her, Orville said sharply and staggered away. I told you he was having fun there, Dick smiled, watching Orville mutter something under his breath. Hey, did his wife show up? Orville asked. No, he says he doesn't know her friend's name except for Cecil. Dick shrugged. I bet he knows not only that bastard's full name, but also his phone number, address, his mother's phone number and address, and even his shoe size, Orville replied sharply. How's your hand? Dick smiled. Jennifer got out of the car and stared in bewilderment at the charred and smoking remains of her home. What the hell happened? She asked, not expecting an answer. Close the door, will you? Cecil ordered. What? Jennifer asked, looking at him suspiciously. Close the door, I'm late, Cecil ordered. You're just going to leave me here? Jennifer asked. What the hell do you want me to do, huh? Drive you home? Cecil grinned. Yeah, I can just imagine my mom running all over the house because of this crap. Mrs. K? Asked Officer Becky Winter. Oh, look at this crap. Hey, officer, move your car, do you hear me? Cecil ordered. Becky's car was blocking his exit. You, show me your ID, Becky ordered him. So you're Mrs. Jennifer K? Officer, what happened to my house? Jennifer asked. Please answer the question, Becky replied sharply. Are you Jennifer K? Yes, it's me, Jennifer agreed. So what happened to my house? Jennifer K, hands behind your back. Jennifer K, you have the right to remain silent. Becky began the ritual. Jennifer was in a daze as she was registered, fingerprinted, searched. She woke up enough to call Becky Zima a lesbian, and then placed in a cell with 3 prostitutes who chatted and laughed among themselves in Spanish. The court hearing will be tomorrow morning, Becky explained patiently to an enraged Jennifer K. That's when bail will be set. In the meantime, try to get some sleep, okay? Kiss my ass, you vampire, Jennifer hissed in response. In the morning, Jennifer was assigned a lawyer, Donald Pellish. Donald kept a straight face as Jennifer declared her innocence and looked at her with hatred when Donald explained that her husband had involved her in their arson scheme for financial gain. Is that true? Kenneth asked Sophia Couture, his pro bono lawyer. You're saying it's illegal, but I was just doing what my wife told me to do. You see, she's the boss in our family. Ask anyone, and they'll tell you that Jennifer is the boss. You son of a bitch, Jennifer shouted at Kenneth when they finally saw each other in the St. Elizabeth's Parish Courthouse. Kenneth grinned as he watched Donald and the bailiff hold Jennifer back. You bastard, I'll destroy you, Jennifer yelled as she was led into the courtroom to Judge Jack Melanson. Stop being so nice, Kenneth whispered to Sophia Couteau, as the defense lawyer vigorously demanded that her client be released without bail. What? She asked in confusion. I said stop being so nice and let me sit down, Kenneth said, and she finally looked at the assistant district attorney. Adam quickly agreed that Kenneth could remain a guest of the state, and Kenneth was transferred to DeHarden Prison, where he will await trial. So, Mr. K, what's really going on? Sophia asked. And yes, everything is being recorded. The system is disgusting, Kenneth replied calmly. My wife is having fun, and I have to sit here and take it. I'm asking for a divorce, she gets the house, the car, the kids, and I get the bills. She hardly worked, and I worked myself to the bone to give her everything I could, and it's just awful, isn't it? And now she wants to tell me that it was my idea to burn down our house so that I could sit and rot behind bars while she and her lover or lovers, I don't even know how many lovers she has, could all go to the Bahamas at my expense. No, Mrs. Cutter, leave me behind bars. If I don't work, she won't get a penny of my money, right? Yes, the system is truly disgusting, Sophia agreed. My first husband cheated on me. He didn't care, and I worked myself to the bone to teach him and myself a lesson in law school. When he gets his degree, he'll tell me he's finally found the love of his life, and I'll still be paying all the bills he racked up when we were married. That's disgusting, Kenneth agreed. Yes, but there's a silver lining, Sophia smiled. I met my husband thanks to that jerk who ran away from me, and his one true love? Turns out he's HIV positive. Oh, Kenneth smiled. Okay, Mr. K, see you in a couple of months. Sophia shrugged and stood up. Chapter 3. Donald Pellichet was more than happy to let Jennifer K go as a client. She insisted that he not favor her over other clients. Damn, yes, I'm right. They pay, bitch, he muttered after another heated argument. Dick Davis smiled knowingly as Donald left the police station. I don't know who she'll turn to, but she won't come to me, Donald warned Dick. Jesse Johnson entered the station, listened to Jennifer's explanation, and wrote down the information about her secret account. Damn, there's at least 40,000 in there, she said. Just get me out of here. Jesse entered the information into his laptop, cleared the user ID field, and tried again. Mrs. K, I don't know how to tell you this, but, Jesse said after a long pause. Let me see. Jennifer growled, grabbed the keyboard with her fingers, and screamed in rage when she realized the account was gone. What a little bastard, she growled. And of course, since the house is in both your names, Jesse continued. What house? Jennifer screamed. That damn bastard burned it to the ground. I mean, Mrs. K, you hired me as your lawyer, not as a pro bono lawyer. Mr. Pellichet was your court-appointed lawyer, Jesse said. My services cost £350 an hour. You're going to pay me, aren't you? Fine, damn fine, Jennifer sighed. Get your lazy ass over here. With pleasure, Jesse lied and left the room. Come on, princess, Becky said, and led Jennifer back to her cell. I'm going to make you mine. You hear me, you bastard? Jamal Westinghouse grinned as he watched Kenneth sit on his bunk and reread Brave New World for the 100th time. No thanks, Kenneth replied calmly. But have a nice day. Damn you, Jamal shouted, snatching the book from Kenneth's hands. Kenneth calmly stepped on Jamal's head until his body stopped twitching. Hey, kid, don't be so aggressive with us, will you? One of the men complained. One of the men complained. One of the men complained. You called me a beggar, didn't you? Damn it, I didn't do anything to you, did I? That's right. You didn't do anything for me, did you? Where were you when homie told me I was his new bitch? Or when he jumped me, huh? Kenneth asked. Damn, I thought you'd guess, you know what I mean? Muttered the man. What the hell? Growled Captain Charles Viejo when he saw Jamal Westinghouse's body lying on the floor. He slipped and fell, probably, Kenneth shrugged. Just slipped, Charles complained. Jennifer was just leaving the courtroom with 5 other women in Bender police custody when Kenneth K was brought into the room in handcuffs. What's he doing here? Jennifer asked Becky Winter. They're not going to let him go, are they? I don't know for sure, but I heard he trampled another prisoner to death. Becky shrugged. Jennifer looked over her shoulder. 3 armed police officers were leading Kenneth into the courtroom. Him? You're joking. He's a complete idiot, Jennifer laughed. No, no, you must be confusing him with someone else. Oh no, ma'am, Bernice said. There's no way in hell I'm letting you go to Northside. Why? Jadia asked, swallowing a huge bite of her chicken salad sandwich. Jalissa and I went there. Wow. Look how well you did, said Melvin, earning himself a slap on the back of the head from Bernice. No, ma'am, come on. We're going to St. Thomas. It's a great school, Bernice said firmly. Ha ha, you'll have to wear that stupid uniform, Jalissa smirked. Smirked, 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 smirked. There's nothing wrong with that uniform, Bernice said. But Grandma, we can't afford that school, JC complained. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of everything, Bernice said. When do you think Mum will come for us? Jalissa asked. After all, they must know she had nothing to do with the house fire, right? Oh, and I'm sure your dad will be out soon, too. Bernice reminded the girl that she needed to think about her other parent. How long has it been? Almost a month, right? Asked Jadia, finishing her sandwich. Yes, a month already, agreed Melvin. A whole month. 4 long weeks of I'm bored. I have nothing to do. When is Mummy coming home? And quiet you, but Grandpa's right, said Bernice. What? Asked Jadia, looking at her grandmother. I know that you and Jalissa aren't going to school anymore. I was at the graduation, said Bernice. Yeah, now they reward mediocrity, said Melvin, earning himself another slap on the back of the head. So can any of you take the initiative? Go out and find a job somewhere? Bernice finished. What? Asked Jalissa. Work, you know. People get up, get dressed, and go there every day to earn money. You've probably heard of it, said Melvin. It's in all the newspapers, damn it. I've even heard people talking about work on TV. You're joking, right? Smiled Jalissa. No, I'm not joking, said Bernice. I asked you to help around the house. I'm not running a hotel with free food, clothes, and everything else, but none of you lift a finger. What about her? Exclaimed Jadia, pointing at JC. What about her? Asked Bernice, putting her hand on JC's shoulder. Who helped Grandpa cut copper yesterday? And she helped me change the oil in the car the day before, Melvin added. And she almost got oil all over herself, Jalissa objected. Well, at least she tried. At least she helped. At least she did her part, Melvin said. So you two have about... What do you think would be fair, Melvin? A week? 2 weeks to find a job? A real job where you get paid? Or call Grandma Moore and ask if you can stay with her, Bernice said. Are you kidding? Exclaimed Jadia and Jalissa. No, I'm afraid not, replied Bernice. Anyone else want a sandwich? I'll take one, offered Melvin. No, sweetie, you're not a teenager. Bernice kissed him on his bald head. Can I have another one, please? Asked JC, holding out her plate. Of course, sweetie, Bernice smiled. Can I have another one, please? JC teased Jalissa. Oh no, be careful, there's a vicious animal on the loose, Melvin warned, feeling Pebbles rubbing against his leg. Grandpa, it's not like that, laughed JC as Pebbles rubbed against her bare leg. Okay, one of you can sit down at the computer and start writing your resume, and the other can look through the classifieds and find something suitable. In an hour, you'll switch, suggested Bernice, placing the newspaper on the table. Jalissa and Jadia looked at each other in shock. It was unusually cold on the day of the trial in the case of State of Louisiana versus K&K, and Kenneth was grateful to his mother for buying him a coat. Sophia and Donald stood pensively between Kenneth and Jennifer. All rise. The Honorable Harold Monroe is presiding, announced the bailiff. Jennifer smiled when JD and Jalissa's father entered the courtroom. When Judge Monroe asked if everyone was present and ready to begin, all parties responded affirmatively. Your Honor, if the court doesn't mind, Donald Pellichet began. Jennifer didn't notice the slightest sign of recognition, even when Donald insisted on using her maiden name and the names of her 3 children in his motion to have her case heard separately from Kenneth's. Harold Monroe recognized Jennifer, even though she was no longer the 19-year-old McDonald's employee who had impressed him so much with her Mercedes-Benz and Rolex watch. But she had had a fling just a few years ago. Since then, she had had at least 100 women, and none of them would receive any preferential treatment. In the interest of saving time in the Louisiana state budget, your motion is denied. Proceed, Mr. Rich, Donald interrupted, gesturing for the assistant district attorney to continue. But I didn't do it, Jennifer shouted when Adam explained his theory about how Jennifer and Kenneth had planned to defraud Young Insurance Corporation of nearly $300,000 by committing arson. Counsel, if you cannot control your client, Harold warned, Yes, Your Honor, I'm very sorry, Your Honor, Donald said, placing his hand firmly on Jennifer's leg. Jennifer continued to struggle and was eventually escorted out of the courtroom. Your Honor, my client does not dispute the version of events presented by the state, but asks for leniency. Remember that this is a person who, according to the district attorney, has been manipulated and coerced into carrying out the will of an accomplice for many years. Sophia finally addressed the court after Adam Rich finished his arguments. And, Your Honor, I ask that my client be released. In her own words, she had no part in this despicable act or the subsequent attempt at fraud, Donald Pellichet said. Oh, the court finds you guilty of arson with aggravating circumstances under Section 4, subsection, Harold Monroe announced, and was somewhat surprised when Kenneth smiled upon hearing the sentence. 8 to 12 years. Behave yourself, you'll be out in 5 or 6 years, whispered Sophia, patting her client affectionately on the arm. Bye, Dad, sobbed JC as Kenneth was allowed to give her a quick hug. Jadia and Jalissa didn't even show up in court. Grandma Moore didn't want to be bothered with such nonsense. Grandma Moore found it almost unbearable to have two spoiled teenagers her age on her shoulders, and she deeply resented Kenneth K's mother and father, for not taking care of the two brats. But no matter how unbearable and inconvenient it was, Jennifer's mother couldn't in good conscience turn her own granddaughters away. Maybe we should have looked harder, Jadia whispered to Jalissa. You can if you want, Jalissa smiled and turned on the television. No, I mean, we have work to do, and we could, well, get busy, said Jadia. Yes, you could if you wanted to, Jalissa replied. But I'm bored sitting here all the time, Jadia complained. Then go do something, Jalissa shrugged. Melissa Moore burst into the small flat and stared at her two lazy and insolent granddaughters. It was one thing for these two lazy and cheeky girls to behave like that to Kenneth K, whom she despised for being a man, but it was quite another for them to behave like that to her. Can't you girls get your useless asses off the couch and take out the trash? She yelled. Okay, Jalissa complained and got up from the couch. And you, Melissa snapped at Jedis. Why don't you do something with that beef mince? What? Jedis asked in confusion. Try cooking it, for example, Melissa suggested. I've been on my feet all day, for God's sake, working my ass off. Jade panicked because she had never cooked in her life and started crying seriously. Damn it, stop it, Melissa shouted. All right, but I don't want to hear any more, I don't like that. What is that? From you, do you hear me? JC fit in well in the 8th grade at St. Thomas Aquinas School. She had good grades and good behavior, and no one thought it was strange that she lived with her grandparents. There were 2 other children in her class in similar situations. Given the opportunity to step out of the shadow of her 2 older sisters, JC excelled in sports. Coach D. Campion wasted no time in contacting Melvin K. and asking if he could sign JC up for the junior basketball team. Sure, but wait until softball season. She's got a cannon for an arm, I promise you, Melvin told the excited coach. But I'm too small, JC objected. Nonsense, Coach D replied. I've seen you throw that ball, and that girl is at least a foot taller than you. Everyone in the gym knew where Melvin K. sat, and they knew that JCK was his granddaughter. Rebounds were accompanied by applause, fouls were loudly contested or loudly called, and points were met with cheers. Sit down, Melvin. People can't see behind you, Bernice said calmly. Did you see that? Melvin shouted. That girl pushed her on purpose. I think your grandfather is here, Rain Sneed teased as they left the group. Yes, JC smiled proudly. After losing the last game, JC was very quiet on the way home. What's wrong, sweetie? Bernice finally asked. I miss my dad, JC confessed. Well, it's almost Christmas. Why don't you write him a letter? Bernice suggested. Bernice suggested. Bernice suggested. Bernice suggested. Bernice suggested. Yeah, we can send him that photo of you with your teammates in the City Cup, Melvin suggested enthusiastically. But I want him to come home, JC whined, momentarily behaving like a girl on the cusp of adolescence. Me too, Bernice admitted. God, he may be your dad, but have you forgotten? He's my little boy. Jennifer didn't fit in at St. Gabriel's. Her beauty made her a target for the other inmates. Oh, and the male guards, and a few female guards, were targets too. Her arrogant and bitchy behavior didn't win her any friends when she first entered the system, and in the prison hierarchy, first impressions are everything. On top of that, any sign of weakness was immediately used against her. Her claims of innocence were met with ridicule from the few who even spoke to her. "But I'm serious," she would shout. "My crazy husband did this to me." "Yeah, sweetie, look around you. Everyone here is innocent," one girl would laugh. "And most of us are here because some damn man did this to us," another would add. On that first night, Jennifer began to pray that the next 10 to 15 years would pass quickly. "Damn, I'll be 49 when I get out of here," she cried quietly. Chapter 4. Kenneth smiled through gritted teeth, wanting to cry as he read the last letter from his daughter. The photo attached to the letter showed a young woman just entering adulthood. He wanted to cry looking at the photo, but tears were a sign of weakness, and weakness was dealt with very quickly in Angola. JC was standing in her Clark's drive-in waitress uniform, her long brown hair falling in huge curls, a cheeky smile lighting up her face as she balanced a tray of food in one hand. "God, baby, you're so beautiful," Kenneth muttered, looking at the photo again. He remembered taking JC to a friend's birthday party at the Flowers skating rink. 9-year-old JC was nervous before the party. "What if I fall?" she asked. "Then you will," Kenneth replied. "But I know you. I know you'll fall. Say so what? And get up and try again." JC did fall, got up and tried again. By the end of the party, she was begging Kenneth to take her again the following Saturday. And by the end of the school year, she asked for a pair of roller skates for her birthday. "Can you skate?" John Clark asked the pretty 16-year-old girl. "Yes, sir. My dad taught me." JC smiled proudly. "I have my own, look." She pulled a pair of skates out of her backpack. He nodded in agreement, then looked at the form she had filled out. "It says here that you go to St. Thomas Aquinas High School, is that right?" John asked. "Yes, sir. I have a 3.8 GPA, JC replied, smiling dazzlingly again. All right. Now I'll tell you how things work around here," John said, putting her application aside. "You mean I got the job?" JC asked, choking with excitement. "Well, we'll give you a try and see how you do," John agreed. On her first night, she almost failed. John watched from the window as his new employee spun, somersaulted, and pirouetted on the concrete floor. "Damn, that girl is acting," he muttered to Nancy, the head chef. "No, she's not playing," Nancy replied. "She's having fun, but I bet you $100 she'll get the biggest tips tonight." "Oh, damn," John exclaimed as JC jumped over the wooden bench and ran back into the kitchen diner. "2 cheeseburgers, one without pickles, one without onions, large fries," Jesse squeaked, stopping in front of the soda machine and starting to pour a drink. "See," Nancy said. "She's just having fun, not playing." "Yeah," said John, not entirely convinced. The other 2 waitresses made way for her as she carried the tray with the orders. "If she spills it," warned John as JC rushed back to the truck with the customers. "If she spills anything, I'll eat it." Nancy smiled as JC spun around at the last moment and set the tray on the truck's window. John watched as JC prepared to give the change and smiled when the truck driver raised his hand to stop her. "I bet she gets the most tips," Nancy said, handing another order to one of the waitresses. Nancy received a £100 note from John. A month later, JC was already teaching the other girls how to roller skate more efficiently, safely, and skillfully. Kenneth looked at her again and frowned. He didn't like how her uniform emphasized her small belly. Her t-shirt didn't reach the waistband of her shorts. He also didn't like that his girlfriend was rollerblading with her back exposed in the short shorts that were part of her uniform. "Nothing you can do about it." He sighed bitterly and put the photo back in his Bible. The noise in Angola was almost deafening, but over time, Kenneth had learned to ignore it. He looked around the dimly lit room and sighed. Angola was the last place he could have imagined himself when this story began more than 4 years ago, but here he was, slowly waiting for either death or freedom. Jamal Westing had friends. One of the men sitting in his cell on the day of Jamal's murder met one of his friends and told him what had happened. So when Kenneth K. arrived in DeQuincy, Lamont Harrison was already waiting for him. Kenneth didn't know why this almost ugly, muscular man had chosen him as his target, but he knew he wasn't going to take it lying down. Kenneth sat down and stabbed his fork into the unappetizing porridge. "This is shit," he announced loudly to everyone at the table. He took a bite and grimaced. "I'm not eating this shit," he declared, stood up and threw the tray at the unsuspecting Lamont. Before Lamont could get up, Kenneth grabbed him by the head and twisted it violently. "Mr. K," said the prison warden, "I think this is wonderful. 94 inmates and no one saw what happened." "As I said, I just stood up and—" Kenneth began. Yes, I know, Mr. K. You just couldn't eat what we call food. I understand, Mr. K." Let's see if you like the food at Angola. Mr. K? Sighed the warden. Kenneth looked again at the photograph of his youngest daughter and smiled sadly. He picked up the photo of his eldest daughter Jadia and her two children, both boys, both mixed race. After her third pregnancy, Jadia seemed to remember that she had a father and called JC to find out Kenneth's address. Damn, did she really finish school? Kenneth thought as he read, or tried to read, one of her letters. The handwriting was terrible, the grammar unbearable, and most words with more than 2 syllables were misspelled. But she sent him letters she wrote to him, and she signed every letter. Love you and miss you, Judy. He looked at the last photo and shuddered. According to his mother, when Judy gave birth to Robert, she started sending her £100 a month, but stopped when she found out that Judy was spending the money on tattoos instead of food. Robert and Samuel, huh? Kenneth grinned, knowing that Jennifer must have hated him. Jennifer must have hated the fact that she was a grandmother, and hated that her daughter had given her children relatively normal names. Kenneth sat down at the table and began to write a reply to JC's letter. JC's letter was already on its way. He wrote her very short letters. Judging by JC's letters, long letters would only confuse her. He thought again about whether it was time to write to Sophia Catre, his lawyer. My dear JC, he began, I think now is the right time to be completely honest with you, JC, and with Mrs. Sophia Catre about what really happened that night. I wish at least one of her parents could have been at her high school graduation, he thought to himself. Jennifer Kay barely looked up when she was led into the courtroom, ignoring both Donald Pellicetto's greeting and Sophia Catre's. Am I back for dinner? She finally asked. That's exactly what we're trying to do, Mrs. Kay. Donald smiled tensely. Oh, we're trying to get you home for dinner. She raised her head, then looked at the other lawyer. 5 years of prison life had enveloped her in a fog. Days blurred together, sounds mingled, smells mixed. There were no clear boundaries separating one thing from another. What? She asked. Kenneth Kay confessed. He set the house on fire of his own free will. He exonerated you of any involvement, Donald said. That's exactly what I've been trying to tell you for 5 years, Jennifer hissed, her bitterness and anger building up over the past 5 years. 5 years. 5 long years, and now you're ready to believe me. Payback is sweet, isn't it? Kenneth grinned as 2 armed guards led him past her in handcuffs. You bastard, Jennifer hissed, venom dripping from her lips. Mrs. Kay, please calm down, Donald advised. You need to look as presentable as possible in front of Judge Hill. To hell with all of this, and to hell with you too, Jennifer hissed. All rise, the bailiff announced. Jennifer glared at Kenneth, who calmly and clearly recounted the details of that night, including Jennifer's impromptu confession of numerous affairs and the behavior of their 3 children. So, Mr. K, you are claiming that Mrs. K knew nothing, and he was not involved in either the arson or the subsequent attempt to defraud Young Insurance? Donald asked. No, she wasn't involved, Kenneth smiled. And in fact, Mr. Pellichet, there was no attempt to defraud Young Insurance. You can check with them. No claims were filed. Damn, I knew they wouldn't pay. Counsel? Asked Judge Stephen Hill. Mr. K, why now? Why are you revealing all this now? Honestly, replied Kenneth, I really thought I would take this to my grave. To hell with that bitch. I worked my ass off for her and her damn kids for 19 years, and she knew they weren't mine and laughed in my face. But in a few months, our youngest daughter is graduating from school, and I really want to be there, but I know it's impossible, but at least her mother could be there. That's very noble of you, Mr. K, Judge Hill said dryly. What now? Jennifer asked when Judge Stephen Hill left the courtroom. Now we wait for his decision, Donald said. What decision? That bastard told him I had nothing to do with... Jennifer hissed. Yes. Now all we can do is wait and see if he believes him or not, said Sophia. Remember, he's a convicted criminal, Donald said sharply. All rise, announced the bailiff, and Judge Stephen Hill returned. Kenneth K was trembling. There was no heating in the van. Bastards have a bad habit of dying when you're around, smiled Frederick Parr, showing a gold tooth. Kenneth said nothing. Frederick Parr, holding a double-barreled 12-gauge shotgun, pointed at his chest. Yeah, all these bastards suddenly start dying and stuff, Frederick continued, grinning broadly. Damn, yeah! Don't let that little white boy fool you, chuckled the second guard. He's a tough bastard. Really? Asked Frederick. Malcolm looked from one guard to the other, then at Kenneth. So what did you do in the end? He finally asked. Kenneth stared blankly at Malcolm, then shrugged, turned away, and continued staring straight ahead. No, no, you bastard. You know what you did. Talk to me, Malcolm demanded, certain that the guards were lying, just testing how gullible he was to believe their burden. You'll find out, Kenneth finally said in a barely audible voice. Those who talk too much don't live long in Angola. Life is much easier for the bastards who know when to keep their mouths shut. Bitter sadness was Jennifer's constant companion, and she carried it obediently with her everywhere she went. Often torment appeared alongside it. Jadia greeted her mother with enthusiastic cries and sincere joy. But she had no room for her mother. She lived in a large apartment. Jalissa and her friend were just leaving another cluttered apartment when Jennifer found them, so there was no room for Jennifer in Jalissa's house either. However, Jennifer did not want to live with Jalissa and Rudy. Rudy was a loud, arrogant, unpleasant Puerto Rican with several needle marks on both arms. JC was still living with Bernice and Melvin while she was in high school. Oh, no, no. You can always visit your daughter, Bernice hastened to assure Jennifer. No, I wouldn't dream of separating you two. So where are you going to live? That question made Jennifer realize that she didn't belong in Kay's house. So Jennifer turned to her mother for help. Oh, great, just great, Melissa complained. I just got rid of my two brats and now you're here looking for a place to stay. Yes, Mum, Jennifer replied sharply. I'm so sorry, Mum. I just got out of prison, Mum, remember? As soon as I find a job, I'll leave, okay? Yeah, your two brats said the same thing. I'm still waiting for one of them to get off their ass and find a real job, Melissa sneered. Malcolm Jennings was sure that Frederick and the other security guard were lying. Kenneth was a quiet, non-confrontational man. Of course, Malcolm smirked, squinting at the photo of JC in a waitress uniform. I told you, didn't I? Frederick asked Kenneth. The broad smile disappeared from Frederick's face as he pointed the gun at Kenneth. God, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. What happened? Kenneth asked, pretending not to understand. Well, I found him in the shower. He's wounded, Frederick said. Oh, that's terrible, said Kenneth. God, I hope you catch the awful person who did this, sir. Enough of this nonsense, Kay. I'm looking for just one reason, just one good reason to pull the trigger, Frederick hissed, staring at the impassive Kenneth Kay. Ooh, hey, Snow Bunny, what's your name, huh? Cecil smiled, hoping his smile would be seductive as JC pulled up to his car window. Sir, could you turn down the music, please? JC asked, ignoring the man's question. You're disturbing other customers. Oh, hey, screw all that. I have the right to listen to whatever I want, Cecil growled. Bye, JC said, turning and driving away. Mr. John, I asked him to turn down the music and he started swearing at me, JC said. Oh? John said, slamming the diner door and hurrying to his car. John firmly told Cecil that he had two choices, turn off the music or leave. Grumbling and muttering threats, Cecil decided to leave, glaring at the little white bitch rushing past him to the next latecomer. So, what's the biggest tip you've ever gotten? Asked Terry, a slender blonde, lighting a cigarette during her break. One guy gave me $10 if I jumped on the bench in front of the entrance and didn't drop his ice cream with hot chocolate sauce, smiled JC. One guy offered me $50 if I gave him my disgusting underwear after my shift, confessed Vanessa, a petite African-American woman in her 20s. Ew, squealed JC. What did you do? You think I did? I gave it to him, Vanessa shrugged. Vanessa, are you serious? JC squealed. What? Vanessa shrugged. Damn, I got $5 at most, Terry admitted. Oh no, he's back, said Vanessa when there was a loud bang from Cecil's car. Cecil groaned when he saw a powerful man approaching his car. Listen, I just want to eat, okay? He snapped at John. And I told you to turn that crap off or get out of here, John shouted back. Okay, enough. Are you happy? Cecil growled, turning off the music. Now bring that little white girl with brown hair over here and take my order. No, I'm standing right here. You can give me your order, John smirked, watching JC and Vanessa run past, trying to impress each other. Cecil watched as the two girls finished their rounds, collecting empty trays and rubbish from various machines. Sir, John asked loudly, getting Cecil's attention. Yes, give me a burger with everything and a diet soda, Cecil ordered. Fries? John asked. With fries? Cecil asked again. If you pay for them, then yes, John replied. Then no, said Cecil. JC walked wearily to her car. It was a quiet evening, and quiet evenings were even more exhausting for her than busy ones. At least on busy evenings, she could move. Stopping, moving, and stopping again took much more energy. Hey, bitch, I need to talk to you. Cecil growled and reached for her. Adrenaline pumping, she grabbed the pepper spray from her bag. Cecil screamed when the spray hit his eyes. Blinded, he reached out to hit JC and knock the awful canister out of her hands. JC didn't let go of the canister until Cecil was choking, writhing in pain and unable to breathe. I called the police, John shouted, waving his gun. Call your grandparents and tell them you'll be home later. Melvin was already out of bed and getting dressed when Bernice hung up the phone. Be careful and don't speed, she warned. My granddaughter is in trouble and all you care about is that I might be speeding. Melvin trembled. Melvin stood and listened as Sheriff Dick Davis took statements from everyone present. Unfortunately, since nothing had happened except Cecil raising his hand to JC, there was nothing to be done. Are you saying she has to let him do that to her before you can do anything? Melvin asked the policeman angrily. No, I'm saying that if he's really involved, we can press charges. But from the looks of it, your granddaughter is a quick trigger, so Dick explained patiently. Turning to Cecil, Dick said, touch her again, and I'll stick to you like shit sticks to a dog. Understand? Cecil didn't answer, only groaned when the medic finished washing his eyes. It'll hurt a little, but you'll be able to drive, the medic finally said. Yeah, sure, sounds great, said JC and hung up. How's your mom, dear? Asked Bernice, trying not to betray her disapproval. Fine, I guess, JC shrugged. She says she wants to take me out to a restaurant to celebrate graduation, you know? Oh, that's nice, Bernice said, trying to sound cheerful. Mexican food at Manny's, it's really good, JC said and got ready to leave. Be careful, have fun, love you, Bernice said. JC glanced into the living room and smiled. Melvin was lying on the sofa, snoring. Pebbles was lying on his chest, snoring too. Grandma, bring me my camera, JC whispered. What? Melvin jumped, startled by the flash of the camera. Sorry, Grandpa, JC smiled. I forgot to turn off the flash. Damn thing. JC, get that awful cat off me, Melvin complained. Oh, I'd love to. If I had a cat, laughed JC, gently stroking the cat's belly. After kissing Melvin and Pebbles, JC left the house. I hate cats, Melvin muttered as he sat down. We should throw that creature out on the street and let the coyotes deal with it. Yes, the cat looks scared, Bernice smiled. Now go wash your hands, dinner is almost ready. Where did JC go? Melvin asked. To dinner. With Mum, Bernice replied, pronouncing the word mum as if it were vulgar. Cecil smiled with relief. He had met Jennifer before and vaguely remembered her. Yes, wait until you see my daughter, you'll like her, Jennifer said enthusiastically as they stopped in front of Manny's restaurant. Wow, does she look like her mother? Cecil asked. No, not really. Well, maybe a little, Jennifer laughed. Draw me long brown hair and I think you can do it, Jennifer said. You must have seen her. She works at that, what's it called? That cafe? Clark's? Cecil asked. That's her, Jennifer said, poking him in his muscular chest. Long curly hair? Cecil asked, pulling a 9mm pistol out of the glove compartment. Yes, what do you need it for? Asked Jennifer, noticing the gun. Just do it, baby. You know what I mean. Cecil smiled encouragingly. Damn. You never know what ignorant bastards might show up in places like this. You know what I mean? JC entered the building, saw her mother sitting at the table, and headed towards her. She stopped when she saw Cecil sitting next to her mother, smiling maliciously at her. Hi, Mum. What's he doing here? I thought it was just going to be the two of us, JC asked. Yes, I was, Jennifer replied, smiling happily. But I ran into him by accident. This is Cecil, my ex-boyfriend. And I just thought, you know? Cecil smiled even wider, leaning back so that JC could see the handle of his gun. Oh, hi, JC exclaimed, noticing Bobby Quabraros, one of the waitresses at Manny's restaurant. Mum, I'll be right back. This girl and I went to school together. She graduated last year. Hi, Bobby, JC said, walking over and hugging the surprised Bobby. Call the police, please, she whispered in Bobby's ear. The man at my table has a gun. What? Bobby asked, and JC smiled broadly. I know, she replied loudly. I'm so glad to see you. Bobby, we don't have time. Go play with your friends, Manny ordered his daughter. Oh, okay, sorry, we'll talk later, JC said loudly. Please, she whispered to Bobby. Bobby nodded and hurried to the kitchen. Have you ever eaten here? JC asked, picking up the menu and looking through it. Yes, but many years ago, before your father decided to cheat on me and send me to prison, Jennifer blurted out, still feeling bitter. He's still there, JC reminded her calmly. And I sure as hell hope he dies there, Jennifer said angrily. So, number 12? Have you ever tried it? JC asked. Ma'am? Officer Eric Green asked. Is there a problem? Yes, officer. This man has a gun. And I know for a fact that he is a convicted felon and is currently awaiting trial for violating the weapons law, JC said, smiling at the stunned Cecil. Sir, put your hands where I can see them and stand up slowly, said Eric, placing his hand on the handle of his service revolver. You little bitch, Cecil hissed. Well, Mum, JC smiled, looking at the pale Jennifer. Do you have to hang out with other criminals? What? Jennifer finally muttered. I said, do you have to hang out with other criminals since you just got out of prison? JC asked loudly. I said that? Do you hate me that much? Jennifer growled, looking at her daughter. Talking about my dad like that? You want him to die in prison? Yes, Mum, I do, JC said, standing up. You know he's not even your father, Jennifer sneered and stood up at Eric's request. You know what, Mum? JC smiled. Maybe his blood doesn't run through my veins, but his heart beats in my chest. If I get out, I'll come looking for you, Cecil growled, looking at JC. How sweet, JC smiled. Officer, you heard him threaten me, didn't you? Yes, ma'am, I heard him, Eric replied grimly. Bye, Mum. Thanks for a lovely dinner, JC said and waved to Bobby. Chapter 5. JC stood up, walked across the stage, and accepted her diploma. She smiled at the 3 people who applauded when her name was called, then returned to her seat. After the ceremony, she hugged Jadia, Melissa, and Jalis and thanked them for coming. How could I miss my granddaughter's college graduation? Melissa exclaimed. Where are... Yalisha began to ask, but then remembered that Rudy had been placed in hospice care last week. Robbie and Sammy? Jacia asked quickly. They're with Eric. He has the day off, Jediah smiled. Oh no, don't tell me he took them fishing again? Jediah smiled. Jalissa coughed, and Jediah turned and looked at her with great concern. Rudy was in the final stages of his illness, and Jalissa seemed to be following close behind him. Finally, with tears in her eyes, Jalissa stopped wheezing and smiled tensely. So, who's ready for Red Lobster? Melissa said, pretending to be cheerful. Maybe we are. I know it's pizza tonight, laughed JD. Eric always says he's going to bring home lots of fish, and then they come home with all these stories about how they almost caught one, but what did you expect? Said JC. He's a lover, not a fisherman. Ooh, I can't wait to use that on him, JD laughed. Jalissa, come with me, JC asked, gently placing her hand on her sister's shoulder. Okay, Jalissa smiled, revealing the spot where one of her teeth used to be. JC led them across the car park to an old Buick. I can't believe you still have that car, Alicia laughed. JC reminded her, I gave it to you. But Rudy said we should have got $2,000 for it, remember? Yeah, Jalissa said, her smile fading. Come on, we didn't even have that much money for a week before it ran out. JC took off her robe, threw it and her cap in the boot and got into the car. Hey, JC, Jalissa asked as they pulled out onto Johnson Street. Yeah? JC asked. I know I've never told you this, but I love you, Jalissa said. JC waited for a response. The last time Jalissa had confessed her love, she had asked her for money. When JC refused, Jalissa hadn't spoken to her sister for almost a year. The next time she saw her sister was at their grandmother's funeral. Melvin was the first to die of a massive heart attack. He died watching the Saints game, Bernice smiled through her tears. On 3, JC whispered to the man in the cab. 1, 2, 3, go Saints! Bernice died 3 months later. The doctor said it was complications from pneumonia, but JC knew her grandmother had died of a broken heart, too lonely without her Melvin to go on living. And at the funeral, Jalissa and Rudy had the nerve to ask about the will, if there was one. So if there's no will, it's divided between the 3 of us? Asked Rudy. 1, hissed JC, looking at the unbearable woman. Now is not the time or place for such talk. 2nd, you're not family. You're an outsider, so it's none of your business. And 3rd, there is a will. It will be drawn up in 3 weeks. Jalissa and Rudy stormed out of the house, shouting, How dare JC say that Rudy isn't family and that Rudy is an outsider? I'm more family than you'll ever be, you hear me? Rudy shouted at JC. Jade refused to join Jalissa and Rudy, clutching JC's hand tightly. JC smiled, knowing that Jade was actually very afraid of Rudy, but had bravely decided to do the right thing. 3 weeks later, when the will was read, Rudy flew into a rage again when Sophia Cutter read that Jalissa would only receive $10,000. JD nodded gratefully when she was also handed a check for $10,000. And to our granddaughter, JC Alice K., Sophia continued. JC's softball scholarship paid for her education, and JC didn't need anything while she lived with her grandparents. She was proud to buy the frivolous things that teenagers buy with the money they earn working at Clark, and her grandparents were proud to buy her everything she needed. Melvin and Bernice left her a house, 2 cars, and nearly £800,000 in certificates of deposit, stocks, and savings. Jade, I don't need all this, JC told her sister. You have 2 children, take some. I'll take Grandma's car, mine is falling apart, JD said. No, I mean take some of the money, JC pleaded. You know what, JC, JD said. Grandma and Grandpa wanted all of this to be yours. Keep it. If I ever need it, I'll come to you, okay? JC made the same offer to Jalissa, but Rudy made all the decisions. So how much did they leave you? Rudy asked. Rudy, please. This is between me and my sister, JC replied patiently. Bitch! We're talking about your sister, you and me, Rudy shouted. In the end, JC decided that her grandfather's car was worth £2,000, and if neither Jalissa nor Rudy wanted it, she would offer them its value according to the Blue Book. I'll bring the money tomorrow, JC said, and walked out of the dirty trailer where Jalissa and Rudy lived. Kenneth smiled as he looked at the graduation photo. God, I really have a beautiful daughter, he said aloud, then put the photo away and read her letter. It saddened him that Jennifer, out of spite or genuine feelings, had told JC that he, Kenneth Allen K., was not her real father. I don't care, JC wrote in long flowing letters. You've always been my dad. You've always been the man I love, and I'll call you Dad until the day I die. Jadiah also learned that Kenneth was not her father, but she just shrugged, which enraged her mother. You don't even want to know who your father is, Jennifer shouted. I know who my father is, Jadiah said, and continued cutting bananas for the banana bread she was baking. My father is Kenneth K., a man who gave up many of his hopes and dreams to provide for his family. Did you know he had a baseball scholarship and several teams were negotiating with him? So what? Jennifer asked, not paying attention. Yes, and he was also a very good bass guitarist. Grandpa hated rock and roll, but even he said that Dad was very good and could probably have been a big star or something like that, but he gave up his toys and got a real job when he became a father, Jadiah continued, stirring sugar into a bowl. Tell me, Mum, did you sacrifice anything for us? Did my father, whoever he was, sacrifice anything for us? Because if my father didn't die and leave me £1 million, I don't care who he was. Kenneth put aside Jada's short, neatly written note and smiled at the photos she had attached to it. Her fiancé was a police officer in Bender, Louisiana, and clearly proud of his uniform. Jadiah was posing with Eric Green in a police cap. In the photo, she was laughing, and Eric was trying to take the cap off her head. In the next photo, she was with Robert and Samuel. Robert was wearing a children's police uniform, and Samuel was wearing a children's firefighter uniform. He looked again. In both photos, Jadiah was wearing long sleeves that hid her tattoos. Good girl, he smiled. From her note, he understood that Jennifer had told her that he wasn't her father, but Jadiah didn't care. To her, he was her father. Good girl, he repeated. The letter from Jalissa came as a complete surprise to him, and he carefully removed 3 sheets of paper from the envelope. Jalissa clearly didn't trust her handwriting. The letter wasn't sealed. He smiled to himself. She had chosen a very bold font. I'm afraid my eyes aren't what they used to be, he thought. Dear Kenneth, her letter began, and although he knew he wasn't her biological father, he was struck by the fact that she didn't call him father, dad, or daddy. So my mom came and told me that you're not my father. The letter continued. I'm so sorry, I can't think of another man I could be proud of as my dad. He read on. In the letter, she apologized for her actions over the past few years, for her disrespect, for her attitude towards him. Not knowing if it was a sign of weakness, he allowed himself to cry when she told him she was in hospice care. No one but me got me into this state, the letter said. I stuck the needle in my arm, not you, not Mum, not Rudy, just me, the letter continued. Kenneth, I know I was a terrible daughter, and you were always a good, loving father, Jalissa wrote. He smiled, struggling to hold back tears, and she signed the letter. With love, Jalissa. Dear Jalissa, he wrote. Jalissa smiled when the nurse read the letter to her. She was too weak to hold the sheets in her hands, too weak to lift her head and read the letter. With love, Dad, the nurse finished the letter. Really? Jalissa asked. Did he sign with love, Dad? Here, see for yourself, said the nurse, handing her the letter. Again? Asked Jalissa. Read it again? Okay, smiled the young woman. Show me, demanded Melissa. Show you what? Asked Jennifer. Show me. Show me where the hell you've been looking for a job. If I'd been looking for a job, I would have found something by now, Melissa shouted. No one's hiring, Jennifer shouted back. Everywhere I've applied, they just said, thanks, we'll be in touch, and that's it. Have you been to Babbage? Have you been to that new place, what's it called, on 52nd? Melissa asked. I told you, they see the letter F on the application and don't even bother to read the rest. Come on, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Fill out that damn form and ask for a job, will you? Melissa said, and went into the kitchen. And let me guess. Now you expect me to cook dinner for you, right? Jennifer lifted her now rather heavy body off the sofa and hurried to the kitchen. No, I'll do it myself. What do we have? Jennifer asked. I've been here all day and you haven't even looked to see what we have? Melissa asked, her anger evident. Jennifer quickly carved the turkey and placed a plate in front of her mother, then served herself. After dinner, both women returned to the living room to watch television. Melissa deliberately chose a program she knew Jennifer would not like, a primetime crime investigation. In your house, you can watch whatever you want. In my house, we watch what I want. Melissa smirked and turned up the volume. Kenneth entered the brightly lit room without much hope. He was once again introduced to the 3 people authorized by the state of Louisiana to assess him and his chances of a productive life outside prison. He sat down and silently looked at the 2 unpleasant men and the unattractive woman. Even in her 60s, the woman still wore her hair long, as she had in her youth, and still used the terribly outdated slang of a bygone Woodstock era. He answered their questions in detail, explaining everything as thoroughly as he could, knowing that his chances of release were practically nil. There were 3 unexplained deaths in his case. In fact, he could have been charged with 6 deaths, but he had no intention of volunteering that information. But he took a kind of grim pleasure in playing the role of pious pity for them. Well, sir, he said, turning to one of the men, my mom and dad are dead, and I wasn't allowed to go to their funeral, so I guess the first thing I'd like to do is visit their grave. You know? My middle daughter, she's terminally ill. I only found out yesterday. She doesn't have long to live, so I'd very much like to see her, to say goodbye. And I have 2 grandsons, 2 boys. I'd very much like to see them. He almost smiled. The woman was devouring him with her eyes, nodding her head in agreement. But even if she believed his nonsense, she would be replaced by 2 bureaucrats in ill-fitting suits. Well, what about the mattress factory? I don't know if they'll take me back after all. How long has it been? 9 years? Kenneth shook his head. God, I don't even know what kind of job there is. I'm 48 now, and I really don't know what I could do. Probably a cleaner or something like that. That's the best I can hope for, right? For almost an hour, Kenneth answered questions, resisting the urge to tell the 3 newspaper delivery boys what they could do with their newspapers, each other, and their mothers. Thank you, Mr. K, one of the men finally said, and he was led out of the room. I hope you get out of here for screw's sake. It's bad for your health and disgusting to sit here, Frederick Parr said without a smile. We both know I don't have a chance in hell of getting out of here, so don't waste your breath wishing for it, said Kenneth as they walked through the dimly lit corridors. JC gathered her strength, grabbed her laptop case and handbag, and got out of the car. Through the smoky glass doors of Young Insurance, she saw a bored woman sitting at a desk. Her blouse was too tight, 3 buttons were undone, revealing a lace red bra. The woman also had several tattoos that were clearly visible through her transparent blouse. JC was glad that JD had come to her and asked to borrow some money to remove some of her tattoos. Just not flowers, JD smiled. Eric likes to eat at the garden. Too much information, JD laughed. How much do you need? JD smiled at the secretary and felt a slight embarrassment when she looked up, glanced at her, and then smiled back at JD. Hello, how can I help you? Michelle Ruiz asked. Yes, JDK. Are you here to see Elizabeth? Elizabeth Baggett? JC suggested. Miss Baggett? Michelle said, pressing the button. Yes? A metallic voice asked. JCK is here to see you, Michelle said. Please send her in, said the voice. Down the hall, first door on the right, said Michelle, pointing with her long, brightly painted fingernail. Thank you, said JC and followed the woman's directions. When she entered the office, she understood why Michelle had looked at her twice. Sitting across the desk was her twin. You went to St. Thomas Aquinas High School, JC said, smiling even wider. I remember everyone always asking if you were my older sister. I can see why, Elizabeth smiled even wider. But I'm sorry, I don't remember. That's not surprising, JC laughed. I was in 8th grade when you were graduating. Go on, Avenger, Elizabeth smiled. Let's see, you're here. Of course, you hear this 100 times a day. I'm looking for a job. Just finished school, business administration, 3.92 GPA, JC said, pulling out her resume. Leave it here, Elizabeth said, sitting back down in her seat. I printed it out when the letter you sent me. Another girl kept asking if we were sisters, JC said, sitting down in a chair. Madison Marcoloni, Elizabeth asked. Yes, people always confused us, even though I had very short hair at the time and she had long, straight hair. Yes, definitely Madison, JC smiled. Okay, let's take a look. Elizabeth smiled, taking JC's resume in her hands. 6 years at Clark's? That's impressive. Seriously, I see some resumes. There are 10 or 15 openings, and I ask myself, why should I hire you? You're going to quit in a month or two, you know? What can I say? I really enjoyed working at Clark's, JC admitted. But I didn't go to college for 4 years to wear shorts in the winter, you know? Oh, I know who you are, Elizabeth laughed. Wow, you're the girl who jumps on the benches in front of the entrance. Yes, that's me, JC laughed. Do you ever wipe yourself off? Elizabeth asked. A couple of times. Once I had a whole bunch of ice cream and I didn't finish one scoop. I felt it slipping out and tried to fix it, but it ended up all over the house, JC smiled. The guys were so worried about me that they got out of the car and cleaned everything up before I came back with new ice cream. I got a 20-pound tip for that. Well, I'm afraid it's going to be a little boring here, Elizabeth smiled. No, ma'am, JC smiled. There's a skate park in Flowers. It's mostly for skateboarders, but I go there and show them what girls can do. And on Sundays, I do motocross. Believe me, I don't miss a thing. Motocross? Elizabeth asked, her eyes wide. JC discovered her father's motocross trophies and begged Melvin to tell her about her father's motorcycle racing. Then they heard there was going to be a race in Jack's Creek, and JC begged Melvin to take her to see it. The sun was beating down, the track was dusty, there was no soda or bottled water at the stands. The noise was deafening, and JC loved it. There's the 125 class, Melvin said. Your father used to race in that class. They used to call them animals. These silly kids don't realize they could get hurt. JC watched as 14 boys raced around the track 3 times, kicking, scratching, shouting, and fighting for position. Oh my God! JC screamed when one rider nearly landed on top of another after taking the highest jump at breakneck speed. I'm going to do it, JC told her grandfather firmly as they drove home that ill-fated Sunday. Melvin looked at the tanned girl and nodded. He knew he couldn't talk her out of it, and his grandmother wouldn't approve, but she wasn't going to try to dissuade JC either. At first, he tried to buy her an old Honda 100. The 14-year-old girl looked at the motorcycle, then looked at Melvin with disgust. Where are the flowers in the basket? She asked. She asked. Really, if you're going to give me a motorcycle for a little girl, you could at least buy everything you need for it, right? He agreed and bought her a 1998 Yamaha YZ125. Yes, it's a bit old, he said. It's perfect, said JC and began to help her grandfather dismantle it. They drilled out the piston, put a sleeve in the exhaust pipe, bought wider handlebars and lighter wheels, and then waited eagerly for the next Sunday. That's my daughter. I wouldn't let her race like that, said a man as they signed JC up. Well, that's why she's not your daughter, Melvin replied sharply. The first race, which included 9 boys and her, was a complete disaster for JC. After 2 heats, she'd finished in 4th place. What? Melvin asked, puzzled, as a tearful JC helped him load the motorcycle into the trailer. Why are you crying? It was your first race. You beat 6 boys. Did you see any of them crying? But I wanted to win, JC exclaimed. Honey, we all did, Melvin said, hugging her tightly. Baby, next time, okay? Next time you'll do better, okay? Kenneth was a little worried when he received a photo of a smiling JC with her second-place trophy. Would you have listened to us if we told you not to race? Bernice wrote to him. Oh, wait, we told you not to race, but you did it anyway. His heart skipped a beat when he saw her photo. His little girl, his baby, right in the middle of the motorcycles, fighting for the lead. My God, he texted his father. I had no idea how scary it was for you to watch that. But we survived, Melvin replied. And we're alive. Melvin sent photos of JC's first victory, and Kenneth was horrified. It had rained almost all day the day before, and by the time the 25th grade lined up at the gate, the track was in terrible condition. The boy to JC's left, Bobby Orino, as JC knew, had a nasty habit of crowding people on the outside of the turn. The first turn was to the left, which meant he would be jostling with her. So when the gate dropped, she veered to the left, forcing Bobby to almost stop. Dirt splattered her face and legs. JC was grateful for the stupid glasses her grandfather had made her wear and the cap her grandmother had made her wear. We spent too much money on your mouth to have a rock knock your teeth out, Bernice muttered. I don't care if it looks silly. You're wearing protection. By the end of the first lap, JC had to desperately wipe her glasses to see anything. By the second round, she was in the lead and didn't need her glasses. When no one is splashing mud in your face, you don't need to wipe mud off your glasses. You cut me, Bobby accused heatedly as JC wiped her dirty face. Oh, poor thing, JC teased, her sarcasm sounding even harsher because of her girlish voice. Next time, watch your back, Bobby hissed, and flinched when Melvin grabbed him by his shirt and pulled him to his feet. Apologize for calling her a bitch or I'll knock every tooth out of your smart mouth, you little brat, Melvin hissed. In the next race, Bobby tried to get close to her, but Jessie held her position, and Bobby had to give up on the first turn. Damn, a girl? Robert Orino lunged at his son. You let a girl beat you. Come on, you damn show-off. We're going home and selling that bike. Behave yourself, damn it. I'm paying all this money so you can let some girl beat you. Kenneth was shocked at how dirty JC looked standing there with her first-place trophy. And in all the photos, JC's dirty face beamed with absolute joy. Are you still racing? Elizabeth asked. Yes, I've outgrown the 1 in 25 class. Now I have a YZ250. JC smiled. Isn't that dangerous? Elizabeth asked. JC held back a sarcastic reply. She was trying to find a job. Well, that's why we wear protective gear, JC explained. When's the next race? Elizabeth asked. Sunday, at Turkey Creek, JC smiled. Want to come? Elizabeth looked up sharply. Was it written on her face? Could people look at her and tell she was a lesbian? However, JC gave no obvious signals, just smiled sincerely. I don't know, Elizabeth replied, relaxing. I have a 2-year-old son, he might not like all the noise. Boys? JC laughed. Most boys love noise. Michelle chose the wrong moment to interrupt her boss's conversation. Elizabeth had inherited the sullen and unprofessional Michelle from her previous branch manager, who had reprimanded her twice. Michelle's blouse was too short and her skirt was too short, in Elizabeth's opinion, and that was the last straw. But Michelle sealed her fate by sending one of Grant Johnson's clients to Elizabeth's office instead of Grant, simply because he looked angry. Michelle didn't like Elizabeth and out of spite sent all the difficult clients to her boss's office. You're not Grant, the man growled, throwing open Elizabeth's office door. Second door on the left, Elizabeth replied calmly. Then why did that stupid bitch tell me it was the first door on the right? The man growled, slamming Elizabeth's office door. Last question, Miss K, Elizabeth asked, not hiding her irritation. Do you have any visible tattoos? She pointed to her left breast. It's a flaming heart with I love my dad written inside, JC replied, blushing. That's sweet, Elizabeth smiled. I don't have a tattoo, but if I did, that's what I would write. I mean, my dad is the most wonderful man in the world, but my mom never loved him and… JC continued. The most wonderful man in the world is my dad, Elizabeth interrupted her. No, JC said in her hoarse, girlish voice. Yeah, Elizabeth said and stood up. She reached out and squeezed JC's hand tightly. Miss K, I'm currently looking for a new secretary with the possibility of promotion in the future. Are you interested? Elizabeth asked. Yes, ma'am, JC smiled. I'm sorry you'll have to learn on the job. I highly doubt Michelle will want to help you once I let her go, Elizabeth said. Would you mind waiting in the dining room? It's the last door on the left. Yes, ma'am, JC smiled. JC looked at Eric and struggled to hold back her tears. Well? Eric asked, feeling awkward in the silence. Baby, yes. You know I really want to marry you. God, I love you so much, JC sighed. Then what's the problem? He asked, holding back his anger. Oh God, I know it's so stupid, but I really want my dad to walk me down the aisle, you know? JD said, and a small sob caught in her throat. Is there any chance he'll be released on parole or something? Eric asked. I don't know. You'll have to ask JC. She knows everything. Jade sighed again. She took his face in her small hands and looked deeply into his eyes. Please believe me. I love you. I'm so in love with you. I can't wait to be Mrs. Eric Green, but damn it. This is probably really stupid, but I keep hoping that the longer I wait, the better the chance my dad will come home, you know? JC confessed. JC entered the house. It was quiet, but it always was when Melvin, Bernice, and Pebbles weren't home. JC had thought about getting another cat after Pebbles died, but she felt like she would be betraying her sweet, loving, loyal friend, so she didn't. She sighed gratefully and took off her shoes. Her first day at her new job had been fun, exciting, and even a little nerve-wracking. Elizabeth had tried to help, but only Michelle knew some aspects of the phone system. And Michelle wasn't around to show JC. Michelle grabbed a few personal items from her desk, clutched her keys tightly in her hands, and left the building in tears. JC took the shoes to her bedroom and put them in the wardrobe, then stripped naked and put on her father's baseball cap. She was grateful to her grandmother for not throwing away her father's things after he got married and left. Jennifer stood at the entrance to the junk shop. So far, the 5 people who had come out and the 2 families who had gone in were beneath her dignity and deserved her contempt. But her mother made it clear. Find a job or a new place to live. Even though Jadia now lived with her fiancé and they had a nice trailer, she hesitated for a long time before finally plucking up the courage to tell her mother that she didn't belong there. I gave you a roof over your head so that… Jennifer snapped at her eldest daughter. No, you didn't. Jadia cut her off. Dad did that. You had nothing to do with it. And JD, that smug little bitch who lived alone in a huge house, smiled sweetly and said in her damn annoying whisper, no, and closed the door in her mother's face. In the face of her own mother. JC didn't even invite her in. She just opened the door and stared at her for a long time. How can I help you? JC finally asked. I can help. What? Jennifer whispered. Is that how you greet your mother? Your own mother? Well, I thought it was a little better than what do you want, you evil, self-centered bitch, JC said. Jennifer stared at her youngest daughter, who was still a child, barely in her 20s, and finally muttered that she needed a place to live. No, said JC and closed the door. Jennifer heard the lock click. Coming to her senses, she got into Melissa's barely moving car and drove to the dump. The sign said they were hiring. She gathered her strength, opened the door, and entered the large building. Hello. Welcome to the dump, a young woman greeted her. Can I help you find anything in particular? A job, Jennifer admitted. Oh, you're in luck, the girl smiled broadly. We're swamped here. If you can walk and chew gum at the same time, you're hired. Even if I have a criminal record? Jennifer asked. Yes, I have a criminal record too, Mindy Laporte admitted. 2 to be exact. She turned and waved her hand toward a large woman who was talking to a customer. There are plus-size clothes over there. Buy 3 items and get 20% off the 4th item of the same or lesser value. Right, Mindy? Grace said. She's looking for a job, but she says she's worried because she has a criminal record. Mindy explained, then looked at the 3 high school students who had entered the shop. Really? Me too, Grace shrugged. I even have tattoos to prove it. St. Gabriel's School. What about you? Me too. St. Gabriel's. 5 years for arson I didn't commit, Jennifer said. Like on the game show Match Made in Heaven, Grace asked, hiding a smile. No, I didn't do that, Jennifer replied. Okay, come with me, Grace said, and headed to the back of the shop. Here, fill this out. Find an apron under the counter, walk around the shop, figure out where everything is, and then get to work, said Grace, handing Jennifer a 1-page questionnaire. Are you in a hurry? Mike didn't show up, we're short-handed. What should I do? Jennifer asked, worried. Just help people, show them where things are. And when we close at 9, help tidy up. In the meantime, if you see anything on the floor, pick it up and put it back where it belongs, Grace said, and left Jennifer to fill out the form. Okay, Jennifer agreed reluctantly. She filled out the form, found a basket apron, and looked around. The layout of the store was pretty simple. Clothes for newborns and toddlers were in the front right part of the store. Clothes for older children were in the middle right part, and the men's section was in the back right part. Clothes for petite and young girls were in the front left. Sale racks were in the middle left, and plus-size clothes were in the back left. In the middle was regular women's clothing. "Oh, that's cute," she commented, picking up a top that had slipped off the rack. "Employees get a 40% discount on non-sale items and a 10% discount on sale items," Mindy said cheerfully as she walked by with several tops in her hands. JC indulged in her favorite pastime, looking through the photo albums that Melvin and Bernice had put together for her father. Kenneth was an only child, so there were several photos of him in the album, taken over many years. She smiled fondly as she looked at the pictures of his childhood. Sipping wine from her only glass, JC thought about his youth and looked again at the graduation photo. The smiling girl with her handsome father was a mystery to her. It was the only photo of a girl with dark hair. Melvin and Bernice admitted that they didn't remember the woman's name, and she wasn't in any of his school yearbooks. The photos of his baseball glory days made her feel nostalgic. He could have been something much more than a mattress factory worker. But he did the right thing, as he saw fit, and married her mother. She looked at the wedding album and smiled at Jennifer's white dress. The noise in Angola never stops, even at night. It's just a different kind of noise. Kenneth lay awake, not listening to the cacophony around him. Jalissa had died of an incurable disease. JC and Jadiah had sent him letters informing him of her death. JC wrote that the nurse's assistant had told her that his letter was her favorite. Jalissa had insisted that the assistant read it to her every day. "So I read it to her again," JC wrote. "I cried. Your words were so beautiful. I love you, Dad." "I love you," Kenneth said aloud. Amidst the echoes of screams, laughter, moans, clanging, and banging, no one heard his words. The end. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and follow me for new videos.